President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today the Chamber is conducting the key document presentation hearings in relation to the treatment of the targeted groups, namely Cham, Vietnamese, and former officials of the Khmer Republic. These hearings are scheduled for 3 days. For today and tomorrow, the trial chamber allows the parties to present their key documents. Parties are granted 1 day, that is 25th February 2016, to prepare their responses or observations on the key documents presented by other parties for 26 February 2016. Ms. Sakalwati, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Grazie, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. International Counsel for Nuon Chea Ritter copy is absent without giving any reasons. Mr. Nuon Chea is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. Thank you. President, thank you. The Chamber now decides on the request by Nuon Chea. The Chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Chea dated 23rd February 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to participate in and be present at the 23rd February 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nuon Chea by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 23rd February 2016, which notes that Nuon Chea has back pain and dizziness when he sits for long, and recommends that the Chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber grants Nuon Chea his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. AV unit personnel are instructed to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nuon Chea can follow. This applies to the whole day. Before we proceed, the Chamber wishes to inform the parties that the Chamber has received and emailed for admission of a document by the co-prosecutor pursuant to Rule 87.4, and in fact the request was made since November 2015. And the Chamber has not yet decided on the document. Due to the nature of the urgency, the Chamber will deliberate on this issue during the break time this morning. So this is for your information, the co-prosecutors. In order to allow these hearings to proceed smoothly and to avoid some confusion arising from previous key document presentation hearings, the Chamber issued a memorandum on 28 January 2016, that is E315/2, with the following clarifications. That the Chamber reiterates its preference for documents to be proposed by the parties directly related to the relevant trial topic. Number 2, the parties may choose to present written records of interviews and the civil parties' applications if they wish to do so. 3, the Chamber will allow the parties further flexibility and permit the presentation of documents relevant to national level policies, although it notes that these documents might be more appropriate for trial topic on the role of the accused. 4. While recognizing that it may not be possible to avoid altogether commenting on the probative value of documents, the Chamber encourages the parties to focus on presenting key documents, that is in reference to the transcript of 28 April 2015, Khmer page 14 to 15, English 19 to 20. Only admitted documents may be presented during these hearings. As for the documents obtained by torture, they must adhere to the Chamber's prior rulings on the use of such evidence. On this particular point, the Chamber issues its decision of the majority on the evidence obtained through torture, that is document E350/8. In addition, the Chamber has repeatedly reminded the parties that these hearings are not meant for the admissibility of the evidence. The parties should therefore not discuss this issue in these hearings, since they were given an opportunity to register their objections and to respond to the written objections to the documents which have already been admitted through case 002/02, that is in reference to document E327 dated 11 December 2014. In its memorandum E315/2, the trial chamber requested the parties, if they intended to present documents and to comment on the key documents presented by other parties, to inform the Chamber no later than 4 February 2016. The Chamber also advised the parties to provide the Chamber with their list of documents which they intended to present together with year and numbers in all available languages prior to the start of the hearings, and no later than 1:30 p.m. of 22nd February 2016. The co-prosecutors, the lead co-lawyers for civil parties, and the defense for Khieu Samphan responded that they intended to present their key documents and to respond to or to make observations on the key documents presented by other parties. They also provided the Chamber with their list of key documents as instructed. The defense team for Nuon Chea, however, indicated that it neither wished to present any key documents, nor did it wish to respond to or to make observations on the key documents presented by other parties. During these hearings, each party is given half a day to present their key documents in relation to the treatment of the 3 targeted groups in an appropriate order. The key documents are first presented by the OCP, followed by the lead co-lawyers and the Khieu Samphan defense team. Then, the Khieu Samphan defense team, the OCP, and the lead co-lawyers are given half a day to respond to or to make observations on the documents presented by the defense team for Khieu Samphan. At the end of the hearings, the defense team for Khieu Samphan or the Khieu Samphan is given 1 session of the hearings to make their response to make their replies to the responses of the OCP and the lead co-lawyers. Parties may refer to an email of the senior legal officer dated 10 February 2016 in relation to the modification of time allotted to parties in the key document presentation hearings after the Nuon Chea defense team expressed its position that they did not have any key documents to be presented or did not intend to respond to the key documents presented by other parties. I would like now to hand the floor to the co-prosecutors to present their key documents. You may proceed. And Deputy National Lead Co-Lawyer, Prosecutor, please hold on, and I give now the floor to the defense team and their guichet.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President, good morning. Thank you. I will not be long. I just want to make a remark. I would like to draw the attention of the parties and particularly the co-prosecutors to a problem. You explained the contents of your memorandum, saying that the parties were supposed to inform the chamber by email at 13 hours 30. And that is the list of the documents to be presented. I am providing this information simply to indicate that I imagine that the timeline of 13 hours 30 was supposed to give the parties to select the documents and the relevant passages with the corresponding ERNs, and when there is a delay, as was the case with the co-prosecutors, there is an impact on the Keo Sampan defense team, I suppose to the civil parties as well. So we will use the day that is provided to us to try to follow up and to make sure that we have the right working conditions. Our team is already stretched beyond the limit. I know that there will be other documents hearings, and so if documents are provided 3 days, 3 hours later than the time allotted, the teams are forced to work at length, and it poses problems to them. So such delays impose certain constraints on a team that is already working beyond its limit. That is the remark I wanted to make. Thank you for giving me the floor, Mr. President.
President, thank you. And the co-prosecutors, do you wish to provide explanations regarding the delay? And if not, then we can proceed with your key document presentation.
Very briefly, Your Honor, there was some technical issues in how we did things yesterday. First of all, our lists for the CHAM and Law Nol documents were submitted perhaps 20 minutes after 1:30. With respect to the Vietnamese documents, the deputy co-prosecutor here had them uploaded onto the system at noon and did that, and then realized after that we were sending lists. So that's the reason the lists for the Vietnamese followed later in the afternoon. The responses to the document presentations, as Your Honors have said, there's a day break and they won't happen until later in the week. So I don't see how this will impact any of the defense in terms of responding to our presentations.
President, thank you. This is merely an observation by the defense. However, parties should endeavor their best to submit a document per schedule. The floor is now given to the National Deputy Co-Prosecutor. Sainbun King, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good morning, parties, and good morning to everyone in and around the courtroom. I will be presenting some documents this morning relating to the treatment of the child. Your Honors have heard testimony from one of the experts, that is Isa Usman, who has extensively studied what happens to the Cham people during the Khmer Rouge regime. So I will start with some material from the other expert who has done detailed research on this subject, that is Mr. Ben Kiernan. Chapter 7 of his book, The Pol Pot Regime, that is document E3/1593, is entitled Ethnic Cleansing, the CPK and Cambodia's Minorities, 1975 to 1977. This chapter contains a lengthy section on the treatment of the Cham people during the Democratic Cambodia regime, in particular in English at ERN 0105, 0133-51, and in Khmer is at 0063-7752-7809, and in French 0063-9020-9063. In footnote 67 of this section, Kiernan describes the primary sources for his research as follows. This section is mainly based on the author's 29 further interviews with Chams who lived through the BK period. All were tape recorded in Cambodian villages, mostly in 1980. Several other dozens were not taped, and additional 50 interviews were later conducted with Cham refugees by Nate Thayer in Thailand and Dan Dickerson in the United States. In his book, Kiernan writes about who the Cham people are as an ethnic and religious group, and that is at English, rather at Khmer 0063-7752-254, English at 0115 0133-234, and French at 0063-9020-222. And allow me to quote. The original home, Champa, one of the Southeast Asia's early Hindu-Buddhist states, was defeated by Vietnam in 1471. 5 centuries later, 60,000 Chams remained in central Vietnam. But more lived in Cambodia, where their ancestors had migrated. They had adopted Islam and intermarried with Malays, becoming the largest indigenous minority in Cambodia. And continuing 4 paragraphs later, and I quote, the Vietnamese conquest of Pan Rang in 1693 sent 5,000 Cham refugees, including much of Cham royalty, into Cambodia. They settled north of Phnom Penh, and their descendants today formed a distinct community of Chams who still use their Indic alphabet and practice a Hinduized form of Islam. But perhaps the largest Cham migration to Cambodia occurred in the late 1790s. The country's oldest mosque was built north of the capital in 1813. Kinnan also writes about the early part of the Khmer Rouge movement before they began persecuting the Cham people, a period in which many Cham in the East Zone had joined and supported the Khmer Rouge, and that is at the Khmer EIN 0063 7759 through 60, English at 0115 0136, and in French 0063 9025226. And allow me to quote. Meanwhile, many Chams had joined the communists. As early as 1950, a Cham elder named Sopman had been one of the first Cambodians to join the Indochina Communist Party. Sopman returned home in 1970 and joined the Eastern Zone CPK Committee. He also established the Eastern Zone Islamic Movement, which he ran with his son Mat Lee. Sopman was prestigious but unique. In other zones, no Islamic political organizations were tolerated by the CPK leadership dominating those areas. During the 1970 to 1975 war, in fact, the Southwest Zone saw the earliest attacks on Cham culture. At first, Cham women were forced to cut their hair short in the Khmer style, rather than wear it long as was their custom. Then the traditional Cham sarong was banned. These prohibitions all began as early as mid-1972 in the Southwest. On Tamok's orders.
Continuing on the following page at Khmer EON 00637761, English 01150136, French 00639027. Let me quote. In Angkor J, the Southwest Zone Chams were officially called Mulatan people, deposities-based people. This is the earliest known use of that term for deportees. Most significant, the Southwest Zone Jams were still called deportees even after they had returned to their home villages in 1974. This suggests the classification was originally intended for Jams for racial reasons rather than geographical ones. At Khmer Eon 00, 63, 77, 63 through 65, English 0, my apology, 0115 0137, French 00 63 90 28 through 30. Ben Cannon discusses CPK documents from the 1973 and 1974 period that reflected the discriminatory views of the CPK leaders against the Jam. The first was an April 1973 CPK document titled Class Analysis and the Class Struggle, which stated, all nationalities have laborers like our Cambodian nationality except for Islamic Khmers, whose lives are not so difficult. Cannon wrote that, let me quote, such class analysis is really racialist, and that with their distinct language and culture, large villages and independent national organizational networks, the Jam probably seemed a threat to be atomized, closely supervised society that the center planned. The Jams were considered an obstacle to the establishment of cooperatives, unquote. Cannon also describes a February 1974 CPK document from the North Zone titled Decisions Concerning the Line on Cooperatives of the Party in Region 31, which stated, concerning the fraternal Islamic Khmers, delay having them join cooperatives, organize them into mutual aid teams, however, it is necessary to break up this group to some extent. Do not allow too many of them to concentrate in one area. Cannon notes that this is the earliest record of the center decision to disperse the Jams. Kiernan describes how in the East Zone in 1973, CPK leaders began telling the JAM they devoted too much time to religious matters and not enough time to revolution. And that arrest of JAM began in November 1973 after some JAM had carried out demonstrations against the communist suppression of their religious belief. He cites a paper written by Gaffa Phieng Met in mid-1974, which reported that at least 300 Khmer Muslims have been arrested, a large majority of whom are from Krochma district, Kampong Cham province. Most of the arrested persons were prominent Muslim villagers and religious leaders, especially Quranic teachers. Based on his own interviews and research, Kiernan also wrote, in September 1974, Pol Pot personally visited the East for a zone party congress, and the Eastern Zone Islamic movement was disbanded. Sosman was expelled from political life and confined to a village. His dismissal coincided with the arrest in August 1974 of 71 other Eastern Zone Khmer communists trained in Hanoi. I note that these acts by Pol Pot against the Hanoi trained cadres and the JAM members of the Khmer Rouge movement occurred immediately following the well-known meeting of the Standing and Central Committee that took place in June to July 1974. Kiernan writes in detail about the experiences of the JAM people in Sector 21 of the East Zone, one of the areas on which Your Honours have also heard evidence. At Khmer Eon 00637767 through 68, English 01150138, French 00639031 through 32, Kiernan writes, quote, Cambodia's largest JAM community is in Region 21, part of Kampong Cham province, east of the Mekong and north of Highway 7. Region 21 included the fertile riverbank land of Krochma district, the Jup rubber plantations, and the rice lands of Suong in Bong Khmum district. Krochma was home to perhaps 30,000 JAMs by the 1970s. Four very big communities hacked the east bank of the Mekong at Tria, Svai Klang, Chum Nek, and Pos, They came under insurgent control in 1970. The Jams of this region were some of the strongest supporters of the revolution until 1975. Unquote. I would also note that the large number of Jam people in the East Zone is also reflected by the 30th November 1975 telegram to Pol Pot, copied to Nuon Chea, document E3/154, which reported, even after some Jam had already been dispersed and moved out of the region, that, quote, the remaining Jam in the East Zone amount to more than 100,000. At Khmer Eon 00637773 through 74, English 01150140, and French 00639036 through 37. Kennan describes the repression of the Jam people in this region in 1975 and specifically addresses who was responsible for that persecution as follows. Quote, a local Khmer who had worked for the revolution in Krochma since 1970 confirms the 1975 repression, but claims that a moderate Jam cadre remained on the Krochma CPK committee, like Matli in Tabong Khmum. He also describes Sao Pim as a good man, but blames some district chiefs, possibly including Pa, for following Pol Pot's orders. The CIA station at the US Embassy in Bangkok claimed to have intercepted radio transmissions from Phnom Penh ordering the execution of Jam leaders in a village in central Cambodia. Whether or not this explains any of the violence in Krochma, it suggests that the center was directly involved in the repressions even at the village level. In lectures to Foreign Ministry staff in 1976 through 1977, Ieng Sari and his aides sometimes touched on the nationalities issue. According to a witness, they just talk about one nationality, the Khmer. They did not mention the Jams. The Jams they did not like because they had killed revolutionary cadres. They had been saying this for years. At the same EON pages, Kennan also writes about what happened to the Jam Khmer Rouge cadres in that region. Madli and his father Sosman, quote, the other Region 21 district with many Jams was Tabong Khmum. When the center disbanded the Eastern Zone Islamic movement in 1974, its president Sokman had been confined to a house on Highway 7 there. According to Mat Lee, from 1970 to 1974, his father had enjoyed Sao Phim's support. But later, Phim obeyed Pol Pot and withdrew his confidence, but built a house in which Sosman would live quietly. In September 1975, his son says, two strangers arrived on a motorcycle at Man's house and offered him medicine. He took it and died that night at age 73. Like the Jam cadre in Krochma, Mat Lee remained on the Bong Khmum committee for 2 years, but Ok Bun Chuen from the region committee says Lee was like a phantom. He had no freedom. Unquote. Kiernan interviewed Mat Lee in 1980 and 1986. There are also in evidence at least 2 of other interviews of Mat Lee that were conducted before his death. An interview by Stephen Hader on 7 August 1990, document E3/390, and audio recordings E3/2780R and E3/2781R. And an interview of Mat Lee by Sim Soria and Isa Usman conducted on 27 March 2000, document E3/7821. And a 11 July 1991 interview by Greg Stanton and Jeremy Stone that is on audio recordings E3/2967R and E3/2968R. During the Jam segment, the defense on several occasions have referred the fact that there was a Jam Mat Lee who was a CPK cadre in Sector 21. But the defense have carefully avoided any reference to what Mat Lee had to say about the Khmer Rouge treatment of the Jam people in his region. So I would like now to present to your honors what Mat Lee had to say about his subject in his various interviews. In his 1990 interview with Steve Hader, E3/390 at Khmer EON 00392080 English 00436856 and French 00479792-93. Mat Lee described the repression and persecution of the Jam that occurred during the Democratic Cambodia period as follows. Allow me to quote. It was post-liberation, June or July 1975, when they began to have a unit to cut hair. The hair cutters mostly came from outside. Second, they gathered up the sarongs and stuffed them in bags. When they gathered up the sarongs, nothing had yet happened. They placed them near the village chairman. Third, the evacuations, bringing in ethnic Khmer and placing the jam in Khmer villages. Lots of them, they forbid worship, all religion. I saw all of what I am talking about. Continuing a few questions later, Sector 20 ordered us to burn the sarongs. They had all villages, burn all the sarongs. Then they killed almost everyone. Nothing remained. They serrated. Sometimes they took them away and killed them. Sometimes they sent them to villages in upper districts, a few at a time. And third, they put them in the forests to die from disease. That was why Koh Pal, island of produce, was called Koh Pes, islands of ashes instead. They stopped speaking Jam, and anyone who spoke Jam was tied up for the fire ants to bite for one night. Unquote. At Khmer 00392096, English 00436868, and French 00479808. Madly told Heather about killings of his Jam relatives. Quote, Pol Pot killed my family, killed my wife, 3 of my children, 3 children-in-law, 1 other wife, 9 grandchildren, 3 of whom were infants. Unquote. In the same document, at Khmer Eon 00392105, English 00436874, and French 00479819. In response to a question about the reasons given by the Pol Pot regime for the screening and purchase, Madly said, I quote, I personally saw the killing beginning in 1975 when he had full power in his hands. That was when it began. Like I said earlier, ask them and they said CIA. Ask them and they said Lieutenant Colonel, Second Lieutenant. And the Jam brothers and sisters, I am Jam too, they led them away by their necks. And in the next paragraph of the interview, at Khmer Iran 00392106, English 00436875, and French 00479819, Madly described the numbers of Jam killed as follows. Quote, I tell you frankly that as for jam, previously there were more than 700,000 according to the documentation. After liberation, I have told people that there were 200,000, but in 1987, it is still short of that, less than 200,000. That is the truth. Thinking about it, 500,000 jam were killed throughout the country, more jam killed than pigs, even more than water buffaloes.
In his 2000 interview with DCCAM, that is document E3/7821, at Khmer 0022 9130, English 0044 1578279, and French 0061 1785-86. Madley talked about Pol Pot attending the East Zone Party Congress in 1974 and a conversation in which Pol Pot admonished him about ending Cham religious practices, and allow me to quote, "I spoke about Cham, the dead soldiers who died near Cham village and were requested to be buried by the Cham. In Cham tradition, a body is buried with their head to the north and foot to the south, and body on their side facing the west. I made a request, and then Ta Chi Sim said he would review it. Pol Pot did not blame me during the Congress. Pol Pot also attended in 1974. After the Congress, he went with Salpam. I did not know they were in discussion and went there, and Pol Pot asked if I could recite Quran. I said I could. When I was about to leave, Pol Pot told me that since we had joined the revolution, how the body was buried was up to the revolution. Surya then asked him the question, "Did Salpam say that?" And Madley answers, "No, Pol Pot said to me by himself." I became scared and apologized to him before I left, and he said it was all right. I told him that I spoke according to the tradition, fearing that the Cham rioted, and he said, "How could they riot? We were alive up to this and not afraid of a few Cham." When walking out, I heard him speaking with Salpam that the deputy should be arrested, that one needs to be resolved, he said. And a few questions later, the Khmer in 00229131, English 0044 1579, and French 0061 1786. Madley was asked whether there was a policy against Cham, Chinese and Vietnamese, and he responded as follows: "All were targeted. Vietnamese were even treated more badly. It was also same for Chinese. None of the Chinese have survived except those who spoke Khmer fluently, as they could avoid being identified as Chinese. I conclude my part of the key document presentation now, Mr. President, and I'd like to cede the floor to my international colleague.
Good morning, Your Honors. I wish to continue by reading you a few short excerpts from another person who conducted research on the experiences of the Cham in democratic Kampuchea, a woman named Farina So, who authored document E3/4519, a paper titled An Oral History of Cham Muslim Women in Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge. At Khmer 00714-582, English 00554-486, French 00772-376, she wrote the following overview. Quote, "Many mosques and monasteries were profaned or turned into pigsties, storages, stables, and torture chambers. The Grand Mufti, his adjutants, and Hakim, as well as educated religious teachers, were tortured and killed. Religious rituals and religious books, like the Buddha Dharma doctrine and the Quran, were collected to be burned or used as toilet paper. The Khmer Rouge intended to assimilate all ethnic minorities into one ethnicity, the Khmer." End of quote. As what we heard from Isa Osman and Matt Lee, the excerpt my colleague just presented, Farina So also states that before 1975, the Cham Muslim community comprised 700,000 people. You'll find that at Khmer 00714-583, English 00554-489, French 00772-379. Her cited sources for that number are a 1974 report from the Directorate of the Islamic Association of the Khmer Republic and a 1987 report titled Islam in Kampuchea. And a last excerpt in a section of her paper titled The Destruction of the Muslim Community and the Erasure of the Cham Identity, which you'll find at Khmer 00714-617-18, English 00554-567-569, French 00772-452-454. As she writes, and I quote, "The banning of religious beliefs and policies descended from the top Khmer Rouge leaders down through zone leaders to regional, district, and cooperative chiefs. The Khmer Rouge organized meetings and warned of serious consequences for anyone who resisted their policies. Then they started to close down or destroy mosques, pagodas, Buddha statues, relics, churches, and religious books." Continuing a few paragraphs later. "After banning religions, the the Khmer Rouge proceeded to erase the identity of each ethnic minority group by ordering people to embrace a single race, Khmer. They instituted a racist, chauvinistic policy of forced assimilation or Khmerization of the Cham and other ethnic minorities. The Khmer Rouge declared that languages other than the Khmer were banned and the Cham language was considered foreign. In decrees sent to the provinces, the Khmer Rouge declared that there is one Kampuchean revolution. In Kampuchea, there is one nation and one language, the Khmer language. From now on, the various nationalities do not exist any longer in Kampuchea. The Cham mentality, Cham nationality, language, costume, habits, and religion are abolished. Those who do not abide by this order will reap all consequences. And here she is citing to from a statement that was submitted to the UN Human Rights Commission back during that period. Similar evidence, Your Honors, about the policy to eradicate ethnic minorities like the Cham is provided by Kiernan in the Pol Pot regime, E3/1593, Khmer 00637-772, English 0115-0139-40, French 00639-035. Quoting from his September 1980 interview of former Sector 21 Deputy Secretary Uk Bun Chun, Kiernan writes, in quotes, "There was no policy of allowing minority nationalities. Everyone was mixed together. There was only one race, the Khmer. From liberation in 1975, Pol Pot was very close to the Dry and other minorities, but he scattered the Islamic race. The reason was that the Muslims had an organization called Fulro Champa to defend the interests of the Muslims, led by Les Kassem, a colonel in Phnom Penh during the Lon Nol period. So Pol Pot did not trust the Muslims. After 1975, in the eyes of the state organization, there were no Muslims at all." End of quote. Kiernan also writes on the following page of a meeting held in Sector 21 of the East Zone in mid-1976, at which party officials announced, and I quote, "Now we are in 1976. We have to go by a different plan. There are to be no Chams or Chinese or Vietnamese. Everyone is to join the same single Khmer nationality." End of quote. Your Honors, I want to turn now to a few examples from the documentary evidence about what happened to Cham who resisted the CPK policies and the orders to eliminate the Cham religion, language, culture, and their identity as a separate people. I can continue to this section, Mr. President, or if you wish to take a break, I'm about to change subjects.
President, thank you, Co-Prosecutor. It is now convenient to have a short break. We'll take a break and resume at 10:30. The court is now in recess.